So, first of all, I won't spend too long on this, but just a little bit about me. I'm from Manchester in the UK. Most people that come out of the UK are from London, but I think I'm one of the only ones that's from Manchester. Oh, sorry, yeah, that's the thing. Sometimes talk too fast, so if you find that I'm talking too fast, just throw a shoe at me or something like that, and I'll slow down, definitely slow down. So yeah, a few things here, but the key thing is I joined Shell in 2005, so that's my 10th year now in Shell. I get an extra day off every year because I've been at Shell for 10 years. And I'm collaboration, communication, and engagement lead in downstream IT, but that means that I cover and help support the whole of the downstream business as well as the enterprise, which is around sort of 70,000 to 90,000 people in our business. So first of all, I just wanted to touch on why social, why did Shell go for this social kind of journey? So we started in 2008, and we had a very specific use case. And really what we wanted to do is connect our offshore welling business. And what we found was these guys were, when I have technical issues, they were very directly going to the same people at different wells. We've got problems, and they were emailing direct people. And unfortunately, none of that knowledge was being shared. And it was all very much one-to-one kind of basis. And these guys didn't have very much in terms of communication. They had to, they were very technical. They had to go to a certain place on the well itself and then kind of do that. Very slow, cumbersome processes. So what we wanted to do is have a central place for all of this to happen. So basically, essentially, we wanted them to be able to go to this place, share their knowledge, have technical discussions, and everybody else to benefit from that knowledge as well. And what we looked at very early stages was Yammer. So Yammer was in its very early days, 2008, so 7 years ago. But yeah, we're really wanting to get on board with that and be early adopters. And again, this is a very specific use case that we started with. So we brought on Yammer. And as you can see here, this is our kind of growth of that network over time over the last 7 years. What you can really see is the first 2 years, 2008 to 2010, we had very limited growth. And that's because we targeted these wells engineers. There was a very limited community of around sort of 500 to 1,000 people. And they really, really did kind of get that really collaborative, all those technical discussions, really technically focused, really moderated kind of way. 2010, we opened up the network to the rest of the enterprise. And as you can see from there, we really took off. From 2011 up to 2014, really that's when we saw the bulk of our growth. And that was because the whole of the business started getting on board. Curiosity got the better of them. They wanted to know what this tool was. People started embracing this way of working just naturally and organically. We never promoted the network. We never had a big launch. It was always just, there's Yammer. Go and have a look. If you like it, use it. And we've got this organic growth because of that. So where we are today, just over 45,000 people connected on our Yammer network. We get around just over 5,000 new posts per month. That's increasing all the time. And then really growth-wise, this is the key thing, is that we're still growing 600 members every single month. We still get 600 new people on the network. In terms of the population, that's half of the people that work for Shell on this network. So we've got 50%. Cool. So what does the network look like? What does Shell's social ecosystem look like? So this you've seen quite a lot today. Emmanuel, I think you showed a very similar diagram, kind of a drawing style one, of where you might see kind of social collaboration. It flattens the hierarchy, takes away the silos, all these different businesses interconnected. Now, we've been chasing this for 6 years. We've been chasing it. This is what we want. This is what we want Shell's social ecosystem to look like. And we've never really reached it. But what we have done, beginning of this year, we decided, look, we need to rethink this. We've been hammering this for 6 years, and we haven't gotten to this point. So we did a bit of a study to try and digest what our network really looked like. And in Shell, actually, what we found is this is more what our Yammer network looks like. And this is more realistic from an enterprise perspective of how it works. And again, this is all organically formed. We haven't steered anyone in any kind of direction. They've really just come to this kind of conclusion that this is the way, from a social perspective, that they want to work. And what we found is that we have these clusters of groups and people that do collaborate internally within their own business unit. So it could be marketing, it could be global lubricants, sales, that kind of stuff. And they have these little groups that they kind of dot around. But what does connect them are the functions. So you look at the functions like IT, HR, communications, knowledge management, all these different teams that look at sort of functional stuff. These are the bits that connect the groups together. So there's not a lot of collaboration between these clusters, but they're connected via these functions. So there's huge amounts of activity in our IT groups. So our mobility group, our SharePoint group, has high levels of collaboration from different business areas, but you don't see it really cross-business. And this is where we're up to at the moment. And that's a really good thing that we've recognized this, is because we can really start to focus on the value now, because we know how our network has developed and kind of come to a conclusion, as it were, of how it wants to live and breathe. One other thing is that we now have these champions as well, and advocates of the network, and these guys kind of float around everywhere. They live in the network, they breathe the network, they are part of the network. And what you see is they kind of move and shift people around, and that's where the collaboration is beginning to happen across different business areas. So it's these individuals that are really the champions of this. So moving on from that, so from adoption to value. So as I mentioned before, the first 6 years of our Yammer network and our social collaboration piece has really been around adoption. And what's happened here is that we've kind of cross-balanced, overbalanced on the adoption side. First of all, we looked at learning, so we've implemented virtual training sessions. They were done on a bi-weekly basis for about 3 years. We had workshop for senior leaders, people that wanted to be involved in it, at sort of the vice president level. We also run events, so I don't know if you guys have heard of Yam Jams, I'm sure you have. But things like that, where we've had senior leaders come in, do Q&A and stuff like that, they've really driven people into the network. Content, so we invested heavily in content. Now, anyone that's involved in the sort of digital marketing world knows content is king, right? So again, internally, it's the same thing. It doesn't mean, just because you're doing it internally, doesn't mean you have to ignore the quality of the content. So creating videos, lots of great stories that people could come in to try and engage people and get people into the network. And then champions, we've set up a Yammer Champions Network. These are people from all over the business, all over the enterprise, all linked together. We started off with 10 last year, and we're up to about 60 now. So these are people that have come to the group and said, I want to be a Yammer champion. And what they do is they've really brought people from outside of the network into the network and help them see the value that they can get as individuals. Now, what you'll probably see is that because we've overbalanced on this side in the last 6 years, we've completely missed out on what the value is. I mean, why are we doing this? So this is from sort of earlier on in the year, we looked at this and we looked at how our network was set up and said, right, we need to really look at the value of this. What are we getting out of this? So we looked at the business. So these business clusters that I mentioned before, we're really focused on them and went to the business leads and we're saying, what's the value? What are you getting out of this? It seems like you're quite engaged. You're doing stuff in this network, and what's the value you're getting it? So that's where we went to first. We went to speak to those guys and get their story. Also the leadership as well. So we've really pushed for leadership to get involved. Before, we've never really seen it, because it's grown organically, we've never really seen it as an issue not having senior leaders in there. But what we found is that these groups have far more engagement when you do have a senior leader in there. And I think that's quite key to what we're trying to do in terms of the value. Strategic as well, and I'll touch on this again later on, so I have a use case just to share with you. But in terms of strategic, it's about embedding it into your strategic view. So all of these different businesses within Shell, they all have their own strategic aim. I'll talk about a global lubricants business later on. Their aim is to go from number 3 as the world's number 3 global lubricants business to number 1. That's their strategy. And they've implemented Yammer and social collaboration right into the core of that strategy from the EVP level downwards. And I'll talk about the benefits that that's brought as well. And then community. So, we've really focused on adoption, getting people outside of Yammer into Yammer. And we've neglected the people that are already there. Those people need nurturing, so we've set up community managers. We've got a group now where people can come and learn about community management, and we've got external speakers in to really help those guys out. And what's happened is it's brought a nice balance to the network. So what we're seeing now, we're still seeing the growth, the 600 per month, but we're also seeing some value come out of it, and we're able to measure that, quantify it, and tell that story as well across the business. So what is the value story? So I'm just going to touch on a few examples across our network of where we're seeing some value. So the first one I'm going to touch on is HSSE. In Shell, biggest, everything starts with HSSE. Most companies have this as a kind of a driver. We have goal 0 in Shell, so we want to have 0 incidents. So that's something we strive for every year. Now, one of the biggest things that we've had problems with, and the real focus for safety this year, was intervention. So this is things like someone's not got a lid on their coffee cup. So you say, can you put a lid on your coffee cup? Someone's not holding the handrail going down the stairs. Can you put your hand on the handrail? Now, the problem we've always had is no one wants to be seen as a sort of a safety nerd, right? No one wants to be the person that tells the person to put a lid on their cup. And no one wanted to talk about it either. It was this thing that no one wanted to do it. So what we did, and actually this was the one and only time our CEO has ever posted in Yammer. He kicked off a safety event, and we had our VPs of safety all in there. We had thousands and thousands of people all just discussing, so over a 4-week period, the topic of intervention. And we've seen noticeable results. So we've had something like, I think it's 15% reduction in those kind of incidents, where it's just a small thing, people spilling things, people falling down the stairs or tripping up. So all those are recorded in the system, and we've seen a really good reduction in that. And that's really down to what we did in Yammer. Next one is engineering. So I mentioned the Wells guys before. So they've really helped adopt. This has been going on for quite a while. But what those guys do, they kind of, in the past, when they've had technical issues, they've had to go and see it. So to go and see a technical issues, these guys have to get on a rig, climb down to where it is, have a look at it, go back up again, go onto their computer, ask the community, this is the problem. Using Yammer on their mobile devices, they're now able to go down, snap a picture of it, ask the community, and get an answer really quickly without having to go back. And this is a really, they have to get strapped up. It takes a long time. They've really improved the efficiency and the speed that they can get these things resolved, especially when it's a technical fix that they can just do there and then. Shipping and maritime. So we use shipping and maritime. Have used this for a while now, and they use it as a learning tool. So they have all the cadets that train to work on Shell ships. Traditionally, they're in college, and then they go onto the ship, and then they do all their onboarding, and that traditionally takes about 4 to 6 weeks. What they've done is they've connected all the officers on the ship, all the cadets, and all the other ships around the world, all in this big Yammer network, and they've reduced that onboarding time to about 2 weeks, because they can already learn, they already know the people that are on the ships, they already know the processes, the policies, because they're in the Yammer network learning it all the time, and they get to talk to all of the people there. So again, really, really good success story on there. The retail side of things, again, this is kind of linked to safety, but they've connected, it started in China, they connected all the retailers who don't actually work for Shell, they're franchises. On the safety aspect, we always have safety incidents at retail sites. They're easy places to have incidents at. You've got flammable fuel everywhere, mobile phones, all sorts of stuff. And really what happened is they connected all those people together in China, and they've really reduced the safety. And then they're rolling out that network across the globe now to all the other retailers. Again, seeing really, really good results there. Distribution, they came down to, so they looked at the distribution network within Yammer, and they connected, again, sales, marketing, they had distributors, they had retailers in the UK, all connected in this Yammer network. And what they found was that problems with distribution, so things, this is a really classic example, is that they were getting, retailers were getting 2 deliveries per day. Now, when they have a delivery, they pretty much have to shut the whole retail site down, and they need 2 people, and it's all really takes a long time to get, the tanks filled up. What they found is that they didn't know this was happening in the distribution network. There's a lot of automation around it. And by retailers posting this in the Yammer network, they found out it was a widespread problem, and they brought someone in to improve that process, which meant basically they could send out one lorry with a dual cargo. So instead of having 2 deliveries, they just had 1, cut it down by 50%, and they saved a hell of a lot of money doing that as well. Mobility, so again, this is more of an IT one, but We have a really good mobility program in Shell, getting people connected on their mobile phones, but nobody knows how to use it. It's really complicated. And that's a peer-to-peer sharing group. And that's our biggest group in Yammer, actually. It's something like 16,000 users in there. And it's a really good peer-to-peer group where people can learn. The incident, since that group's been launched, the incidents recorded from IT for mobility has just dramatically reduced. Nobody records incidents anymore. They just go to Yammer and ask somebody, and someone will be able to tell them the answer to what they've got. And social investment is kind of slightly different, but a lot of people can probably recognize this, but Shell, we've got a really big push to get more women into engineering and IT roles and technical roles at the moment. And we started up a Yammer, well, I say we have a network called the Shell Women's Network, and they started up a Yammer group, and really they had a very low participation from men. So what they've done here is they've really brought in more men via this Yammer group. They can really tell their story properly and bring people in. And what that's done is, so they have an annual conference, and the very first one, I think they had something like 3% male attendance. This year they've got nearly 40%, and a big chunk of that is from this kind of thing here. But it's great because from the outside world, it means they can do more initiatives because they have more funding, more sponsorship, and it's really helped them get out into the communities to kind of reach those kind of girls at young ages and do road shows and things like that. And the Yammer group there has really helped them promote that and build that network. And finally, sales and marketing. So I'm going to touch on this a little bit longer because this one is, so one of the big things about social collaboration is that no one's ever got a return on investment story, right? So it's all fluffy stuff like this, you might call it. It's all about collaboration, nice stuff, speeding up, efficiency. But actually we have now this year got a really good return on investment kind of story here. So sales and marketing. So our global lubricants business, they had their 2014 target, which was to sell $1 billion premium Shell lubricants. So why did they want to sell $1 billion of premium Shell lubricants? Because for every bottle of premium lubricants, you make the same profit as selling 3 bottles of low-grade lubricants. Common sense, right? You sell more of that, you make 3 times the profit. So like I said before, they were number 3 in the world in 2013. They wanted to get to number 1 by the end of 2015. And we're on track to do that. So what did they do? So their EVP put this statement in their strategic goals. Yammer will be the core strategic tool to build a premium culture across global lubricants. And what that meant was that all of the community got together. There was about 600. They put everybody in, marketers, sales, support staff, all in this big group. And the idea was they wanted to really build the premium culture because it's harder for salespeople to sell premium lubricants because it's more expensive. It's easy to say, okay, well, have this one, it's cheaper, and make more sales. So they wanted to build a culture of it, and Yammer was the key tool to doing that. So they really, really drove that. You can see some of the image here where they've had road shows in China and Russia and the key countries that they wanted to go into and really build up that lubricant sales. And everybody started sharing things and best practices and all this kind of stuff. And it really, really caught fire, and there was massive amounts of engagement all through 2014 in this group. So how did that kind of increase sales? Well, it's one particular post. There's a few of them actually, but this is the most prominent one, and this is really kind of where the return on investment comes in. So this is Sasha. She was one of our salespeople in Houston. And she was attending a conference, a roadshow about our new Shell's Pure Plus technology. So if you don't know, Pure Plus technology is gas to liquid technology. So they make lubricant from gas, essentially. So this guy is called Mark Zemmel. So he's a biochemist in the US. So he's quite a well-respected person. He attended the conference, and he spoke to Sasha, and he was so impressed with the product and so impressed with Sasha that he decided to promote it, and he posted on this, Bob's Oil blog. Now this is the biggest oil and gas blog in the US, and he's a key influencer on that blog. As a result of that, basically anyone that reads Bob's Oil, whatever he says is word. So if Bob's Oil blog says go and buy gas to liquid premium lubes, everyone will go and buy gas to liquid premium lubes. Real key influencer there. And she made loads of sales, and loads of people contacted her, saw you on Bob's blog, blah, blah, blah. Made loads of sales in the US. So what did she do? She, of course, posted it in our Yammer group, Premium Acceleration Yammer group. Posted it there, told everybody about it. First thing is she got recognition from her VP, EVP, her manager, and her peers So huge amounts of recognition for her. It was promoted across the whole of Shell. She had a news article, a video, all this kind of stuff. And this was picked up by one of our marketing managers, our global marketing managers, and he created the group called Trade Influencer. Now, the Trade Influencer group, their sole purpose was to find and share trade influences in every single country. And as a result of that, and because of the way Yammer works, is that normally what would happen is you would go out and they would find these trade influencers, and there would be a whole kind of project and a discussion around it. But because of the way Yammer works, they were going, this guy's a trade influencer, try him, and post it in the network. And they could very, very quickly get in touch with that person. We'd be willing to promote Shell products, that kind of thing. So they looked at all these trade influencers. They did loads of stuff. I've got some videos and stuff I was going to show, but it's okay. So it's been on TV. They've got people that do blogs. So all of the people that, you know, in all these different countries where they're the kind of, you know, if they say this is the thing, everybody does it. They went after those. And because of that, they made tons and tons of sales through that trade influencer, and they tracked all those sales through that. Right, so basically the end of this, anyone want to guess what the tracked sales were in dollars because of this? How many sales did they make because of trade influencer? Because of Sasha's post, how many did they make? Anyone want to guess? 5 million? 10 million? No idea. $180 million they made through trade influencers. Now, they tracked it. They tracked it all. So they did reach their 1 billion target. They actually were just under 1.1 billion. That particular post, if Sasha wouldn't have posted that, there wouldn't have been the trade influencer program. They wouldn't have been that big level of focus on it. There wouldn't have been the quickness of market of getting to those people quickly. And maybe they would have made some money still from that program, but not as much as this, nowhere near as much. So, you know, Sasha's post is worth 16% of their full profit for that year, well, their full sales for that year. And they wouldn't have reached their target if it wasn't for that post. And that's where Yammer and where return on investment and where, this is why it's worth it, because that's paid for our Yammer network for the next 200 years, if it lasts that long. I don't know what the next thing is. But that's paid for it. You know, it's paid for it over and over and over again because we've made all of that profit and all of that money. And that's pretty much it for me. So any questions about any of that?